All right, guys, so I know a lot of you are super excited about the S10 Extreme Blazer project of Brian's. Before we get too deep in today's video, we are gonna go ahead and haul the Blazer down to Matt Moore at Moore Racecraft. And he's gonna go ahead and install the cage, cut the front end off, do all those updates. He's actually gonna build a 9-inch for it and a bunch of other cool stuff. Hopefully we'll get him to do a little time-lapse video that we can show you here shortly. We're gonna go ahead and load that up right now, but first, we would love for you guys to drop in the comments section what your name ideas are for this Blazer, because any project like this needs a good name. We need something to call it and give it a little bit of a life of its own. Drop those in the comments below. That wasn't so bad. Some 1800s buggy springs right off of a stagecoach. All the goodies. Not very heavy. That's a good sign. Nice thing about a truck is it already has a hitch. Tie downs are really easy. You think that's legit, Brian?
Good enough.
Good enough. So we got the Magic School Bus. I'm just kidding, that's not the nickname. Loaded with all the suspension parts, Kirky seats, some wheels so we can have them test fit. You guys will see them later, but they're pretty cool. These are the drive wheels and tires. Pick the backspace and offset that we wanted on it, which will be really cool. You're not limited to some little tiny backspace. If you're building it, you might as well build it right and build it how you want it. But everything's strapped down. Give her a couple more cranks, get loaded up and ready to roll. Can't go anywhere without a boxer. So clean, isn't it?
Very clean. Surprised.
Came from Florida, so that helps.
Older cars get harder to find.
Yeah, who would ever think an S10 or a like mid 2000s Blazer would, early 2000s Blazer would be a hard one to find.
Safe.
You can just let her rip. Woo! About drug the rear bumper off of it. We have a new rule at our shop. Everything has to have steering hooked up when it walks. If it leaves the door, it has to have steering hooked up.
I like that rule.
We got like 6 or 7 R&D cars, and we'd push them outside, and I'm like, why the f does it not have steering? All right, guys, we got the Big Banana. I feel like I call it like 12 different names here at Matt's shop. This is Matt Moore.
What's up?
I met Matt in like 2014?
16.
16? Okay, at Drag Week. This dude got my attention because he had a 4th gen F body and he was in college, right? At the time?
Yeah.
He freaking slept in a hammock that he like put on a parachute mount that you bought from us.
Yeah.
And then the other end he had like a little tripod. Yeah. So he would pull up to the track at night and sleep on a hammock. And your buddy had a hammock too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So
Crazy.
right at the gate every morning.
Dude's hardcore. We've been friends and he's been a customer of ours ever since, and he does killer fab work. He would make some roll cage kits and all kinds of stuff for 4th gens and 5th gens and stuff like that. So check him out. In a few weeks, you'll see the finished version of this. We're pretty excited. He's gonna do an 850 cage with the ability to switch it to 750. He's gonna do a whole front end on this thing. We have an innovative Racecraft front end. And then you're building a rear end from scratch.
Yep.
A 9-inch, and doing all the rear suspension with leaf springs out back, so it's gonna be a cool build.
Should be fun.
It should be. Well, it'll be more fun for us. All right, guys, Blazer is dropped off, and hopefully in a few weeks we'll have a done project ready to come back, and then we can start getting going on turbo fab work, fuel tank, all that stuff, and hopefully have it ready for drag week next year, or Rocky Mountain Race Week. Actually, that's the first one we want to hit. Okay guys, we got Brian's Blazer dropped off, and we're really stepping up our game trying to get cars out because we just really enjoy racing, and it took us this far into our business to have the freedom to be able to at least maybe start building a couple cars and getting them out on the track. And that's where we want to be, is hanging out with you guys at the track. No sales pitch, but that's what we want to do. So today we are going to start working on finishing up Andy's GTO. It's been kind of a long drawn out build, just time escapes you and everything, but he has all the components. We have a little bit of time now that things are kind of slowing down for the summer. And we're gonna go ahead and get the turbo setup finished today, get all the plumbing done, and get the car ready for wiring here in the next few weeks. This car is gonna be really exciting because it'll probably be one of the fastest GTOs out there. It's got all the parts it needs to do it. And B, we're using a lot of current and new parts on the build. So it's fun to test those things out and really, when you're building a car, see how much easier things are because of the parts we've made. But that's just our own little sales pitch. So follow along. I hope you enjoy the build and learn some tips along the way. One of the things I'm going to show you today is how we cut holes for downpipes to come through bumpers, because obviously if it's on a nice painted car, you only get one shot. I really like these low profile trim rings that we have. The main reason is they're just not so gaudy. I want them to cover the cut edge, but I don't want them to be so ridiculous that they take your focus off the rest of the car. I feel like less is more. So that side's done already. This side, we have the downpipe started. This is the beginning of the downpipe. It's just gonna wrap around the frame rail here and go out the bumper. And our goal is obviously to get it to go out the same spot. One of the hardest things is figuring out where it's gonna land, because even the slightest bit of, you know, curvature on the actual downpipe is gonna, you know, when it goes 2 or 3 feet that way, it's gonna change how it lays out. So I'll show you how I draw it, how I stencil it, and then how I just do it all together without hurting the paint on the backside, but landing a hole in the right spot so you don't have to redo the downpipe down here. So we got our downpipe back on. One thing that you will note is if you're building your own downpipe, make sure that clamp up here is tight, because just because it's on, the downpipe can actually sag a bunch and move a lot. I've done that where I've built it around a clamp that wasn't tight. And then when you actually go to tighten it, the whole downpipe moves. I mean, you got a lot of leverage and distance here. So even the slightest bit, like I said earlier, can change it. So make sure, you know, your V-band is lined up. You can actually have a little bit of slop in there. And then also make sure the clamp is tight so that this doesn't rock back and forth. So as you can see, we have a pipe coming towards the bumper. So, I mean, that part is already done. And as you can see, it gets a little tight in here with the alternator. The fans will actually move up a little bit. I don't have them secured right now, but we have the space we need. So now what we need to do is figure out exactly where this is gonna land, because we only have about 1/4 inch gap on each side, all around the pipe. And that's not a lot to miss by. And we obviously want it to be as centered as possible in that hole. So the next step is pretty crucial. We do trim rings at Motion. We get calls about this a lot. This is, for instance, a 3.5 inch pipe. Problem with a 3.5 inch pipe is if you order a 3.5 inch trim ring, there's no clearance. So our 3.5 inch exhaust trim ring is actually pretty close to 4 inch ID inside of this hole. You want a nice air gap in there, and that gives you a little bit of room for error too when you're actually cutting the hole in there. So if you order a trim ring from us and it comes in and is larger, it's by design. That's how it's supposed to be, and that's how you want to do it. You know, if this is your first build, you by no means want this to be touching like that. It's near impossible to land it, and number two, it's going to melt the paint right off your fender. Basically what we're trying to do here is see where it's going to land. So once you get it up here, you can actually, you know, telescope that out. And then once you telescope it against that bumper, you'll just take a Sharpie, but just draw around the outside of that paper really carefully. So the next step, I'm going to use a 3.5 inch hole saw. If you don't know a whole lot about hole saws, especially the big ones, they wobble a lot. So a 3.5 will be just over 3.5. I prefer to go ahead and use this. It'll wobble a little bit, and then I'll use a little barrel sander or a saw to cut the rest of it out. All I'm gonna do at this point is, now that I got everything lined up, I'm gonna just slowly drill the pilot hole. Okay, so pilot hole is drilled. So what I'm gonna do now is head to the outside and tape this up. See, the pilot hole is nice and clean on the outside. Now we know where we start drilling. I'll get it taped up and start drilling through the nice, beautiful paint. And there you have it. You've ruined a perfectly good fender. Wow. The old GTO is full turbo mode. We got holes in both bumpers. They match. We almost got a complete turbo kit. This sucker is coming along. And the nice Mickey Thompson wheels. Beautiful. Andy's over here mounting coil packs up. So because he sold his whole last combo, he didn't have any coil packs. At this point, I suggest, especially with a boosted motor, buy a set of smart coils. They're way more powerful than a standard LS coil. And a lot of times people are just reusing junkyard coils. They don't die very often, but they do die. So it's like, if you're gonna start with it and you're gonna pay for those or whatever, you know, with a boosted engine, it's never a bad idea to have more spark. It's just, I mean, more pressure, more spark, more fuel. It's just not a bad idea. So because of the design of these turbo headers and most turbo headers, instead of mounting the coils on the valve covers, we're actually gonna mount them down low. It'll keep them away from the heat, and it'll make the spark plug wires go really in a safe spot that goes right up to the spark plugs without passing any headers, which is a huge plus because nobody wants to melt spark plug wires. So it keeps it out of the heat, makes them really easy to service, you know, cleans up the engine bay, less stuff in your way. We're gonna use our billet IGN 1A brackets. So these just put the coils in a nice strip. Connector will go one way, electrodes will go the other way. So we'll have the electrodes facing up. So the spark plug wires, our goal is that we can reuse our standard smart coil spark plug wires, which those are basically like a spark plug end on both ends. We have 90° on one and straight on the other. They're different than a standard LS plug. The LS plugs for coils have that goofy end on one end. These are just spark plug style ends on both ends. Look at this goofy oil pan. Our Australian listeners will be, or viewers will be right at home with that thing.
Viewers.
A Monaro. This is one of my favorite little tools. We're gonna use these things called riv nuts, and basically it's a rivet with threads on the inside. This little tool, this is a cheapo one, it's only like 19 bucks. But you can get them at most hardware stores, and then you can get any different type of riv nut for different thicknesses of metals. These basically put threads where there never used to be a thread, so if you can't get your hand on the backside to put a nut like this situation, you'd basically just use it like a rivet gun. So you drill a hole that's big enough to fit that sucker in there. Hopefully not too big of a hole. Just a very fine line. So now you have a factory uses these on a lot of stuff, a lot of new, like even combines and stuff. They have like hydraulic versions of that tool. They have ones that are on drills, and then these $19 ones seem to work reasonably well. They're not the best, but
In tight spaces.
in tight spaces they work all right because you can't get it right on. But as you can see, now we have a threaded hole, so that's what we will mount the coil packs to. So now you don't have to have a nut on the backside. One bolt, easy service. You will love that tool. If you have never seen it before and have never bought one and never used one, get one. Andy, the last time we worked on a car together was Wally.
Yeah.
We got to do things a little nicer this time, right?
Yeah. Take a little extra care of this one.
Be a little bit more proud of this one. I was proud of Wally, just not proud of its appearance.
Good. It's just we started with not much.
Well, not proud of his appearance,
Yeah.
and nor did we actually care.
Wally served a purpose.
Wally served a purpose. So now that our downpipes are, the holes are cut, I'm gonna go ahead and just measure how long of a pipe we need for the final portion of it so we can get that all laid out. You can see it's about 10 1/4 there. To go through, it's about 12 there. I actually typically will, depending on whether you're running bull horns or if you're just gonna run it straight out the side. Andy wants it straight out the side, which is cool. I'm gonna just go ahead and cut it a little long, so I'm gonna go like right to 14 inches. And then what you can do is decide how you want it cut, if you want it slashed backwards, if you want it straight, if you want it to kind of match the fender. So if you leave it long, it gives you a little bit of room to adjust it later on. So I'm gonna cut this sucker at 14 inches and then just tack it straight to that. And then I'll, got some holes cut for O2 sensors. I wanted to make sure. I'll go ahead and get those tacked on and we'll finish weld the downpipes and we'll be done with that part. So then we'll be on to the wastegates. I'm gonna go ahead and weld this on the other side of the shop. Get ourselves a nice section of tube. Get it cut and get it welded. That'll do. Some RC car ramps right here. Then you get the RC cars back out. I wonder where the dogs are at. Where's Meatloaf? Meatloaf? What's up, Meatloaf? This is our new shop dog, Meatloaf. He's actually my third dog. He is a very tall young man. He loves treats, running after a ball, and sleeping in the office, for anybody interested. Good boy. All welded up. So I made the cut and then used the barrel sander to kind of work things out. And as you can see, I missed the hole by a little bit on top. Well, so it appears. But this is the reason why I cut it small and then work up on it, because as you can see, because I was a little bit cautious in the beginning, I'm gonna have plenty of room. By the time I work the rest of this out, see how much blue there is at the bottom, and then that's right at the top, so I can kind of use that top as my locating point and then work out to the bottom and still keep my gap all the way around that. That's the reason why you do it slowly and take your time, because unless you're a painting body guy, it's way easier to take an extra hour to do that, or a half hour, 20 minutes, whatever you want to call it, than it is to try and paint that and have the color match. Paint's not free, your time's not free in that either, so do it right the first time. And then as you can see, we hung this pipe out a little bit long, so then we can adjust it and make it look how we want with the finished product. So we'll get going on that, and we should be done shortly. So we went ahead and fully welded up the downpipe. Now that's another important step, just like tightening the clamp, because things will warp. Even if you tack them perfectly, they're gonna warp a certain amount. We actually did the other side already. So we went ahead and got the trim ring all done on this side. Everything turned out great. You can see the pipe is hanging out a little bit far, which we did on purpose so that we could adjust how it's cut and the angularity and all that stuff. So now we're gonna go ahead and move on to this other side. At this point you can just kind of hand file any areas if you want to, but looks like we're sitting pretty good on this thing, so we'll rivet these on and we'll be done. All right guys, looks pretty darn good. You can see it's even contoured to the bumper and everything. Of course, like I said before, we're gonna cut that. Might even talk Andy into doing a little small set of bull horns. Looks like. What are you making there?
This is a strap on the top of the radiator, basically secure it from pushing back and forth in the car.
Because it's already seated in the bottom, so this will just keep it moving, right. Keep it strapped on the top. Just clean that up and we'll go put it on the car. All right, got the Wastegate Downpipe started. Now I'll be able to see how long of a length I need after that, so we should be able to finish those up. And Andy is over here turning these little aluminum threaded spacers. These will go on the top of the radiator. So we'll weld this bung right to the radiator, and then you'll have a hole, so you just put that in and that'll keep the radiator from moving back and forth. Let's go see what we got. So these are the brackets that Andy just laser cut. We just went ahead and used those riv nuts and created a spot on there. So basically what we're trying to do is not have to weld onto this if we don't have to. And then this will slide under there. So what we will do is just drill a hole and then put the bolt in, then pull the radiator back to where we want it, mark it, you know, trace around that, and then come back, weld that on there, and then we'll have an upper support. One step forward, 2 steps back. We got these marked off, so we just need to go ahead and go weld them up. I got one wastegate downpipe finished. Moving on to the second one, welding it right now. And we should be probably wrap that up for the day. What do you think, Brian? I don't know. Andy is getting his ice tank figured out in the back of the car. We're putting it here rather than in the back, A, to save for trunk space on race week, and B, move some of the weight further forward for weight distribution, so the thing doesn't just want to do wheelies or squat all the time. I've seen guys where they cut them flat in the air. If you don't get them like at least a little bit, it'll actually raise back pressure as you go down the track, because you have like air getting forced into it, kind of like a hood scoop. Probably need to weigh in on your thoughts here, Andy. How do you want to cut these?
I mean,
yeah,
you could always, I mean, if you cut them here, you know, farthest out, where at least that hangs out, you can always take more off.
Yeah.
Push it around the front if you want.
There you go. Oh yeah, that's kind of like animal goatish. Nothing deserves that. What I was talking about was like if you cut that 45 halfway through, you just have like a little. So you guys gotta pay attention if you're doing that and you cut it too close as the car goes down the track. If it's like right there, it's gonna get behind it and it'll just melt the crap out of that bumper. I mean, look how far it can come out. So you always want to have like a little bit of room for error. You're in charge of cutting these, Brian. So I got the last wastegate downpipe all done. We put a little kick at the end so that the gas went backwards instead of forward or getting caught in the air. So I'm gonna go put that back on the car and make sure it all fits, and then we should be done fabbing for the day, which is a great success. All right, guys, before we wrap up today's video, there's a little bit of a discussion / we can't agree on anything. Do you guys think that these pipes should be cut off flush here? Should they have half of a like little, basically cut it off there so it's just like a little flare at the end? Or should they be cut backwards? Let us know in the comments, and that's probably how we'll do it, because we can't figure it out, and we figure we'll wait for the unanimous vote. All right, the wastegate downpipes are in. I'm gonna make a little supporting strap over to here. Just that little bit of weight of stainless hanging off of it, bouncing down the road and stuff like that. You see wastegates crack off all the time, so I'm gonna just support it a little bit. Looks like the way it comes down, it's gonna stay away from all bushings and bearings. Luckily the rack's in the back, so I'm not worried about it melting that out like I have had an issue or two in the past. Same on this side. Clears. The coil packs are gonna be mounted here, so those will be fine. Plenty of room for the alternator. It's pretty much a wrap for the turbo side, other than the cold pipes up top, but those are just gonna be 2 into 1 into the throttle body. So we should be able to finish those up next week, and you'll have yourself a turbocharged GTO.
Yeah, all we got left is wiring and plumbing.
A little bit of plumbing left. And we'll have a twin turbo goat.